Alright, so for whoever's tuning in, today we are pro-pressing all the fittings on this boiler system here. I've already started a few of them, but I just gotta continue on. New project, this is yet another boiler build, one that I was working on last night for those that were tuning in. I got all the piping done, so now I'm just doing my final pressing. There's one thing I don't like, you probably can't tell from the camera, but looking straight down on it, I got to just adjust something slightly here. Let's see, watching one of your videos, you stated a difference between using a zone versus circulator depending on... So, I probably have a video on that. David's Toyota's asking, why choose circulator versus zone valves? I think that's what you're asking, right? Yeah. So, it all depends. In this case, you'll see that we have a single pump feeding 2 zone valves, and that's because these are relatively short zones. So if we were to use a single pump on each one of those zones, we would be overdriving, even with the smallest standard pump you could get. You'd just be overdriving those short zones. So we like to use a single pump. Even the thing though is that you could be overdriving still one of the zones when only one of the zone valves is open. So what we do to counteract that is also use a variable speed circulator. So that will adjust its speed depending on how many zone valves are open. But to answer your question in the most simplest way, it's not, some people are like, oh, I'm a zone pump guy, I'm a zone valve guy. It's like, that to me tells me that you don't know what you're doing, because you can't just choose one or the other and do that for every build, and expect the systems to be efficient. So, but yeah, I mean, let's see, about before, yeah, so you bought the 007E. So the 007E is still I mean, it's still a great pump. It's an ECM motor pump that's very efficient, but right, it won't get that variability out of it. It's not to say, you know, if you have a fixed speed pump and it's designed for that size pump to run the most efficient most days of the year, you're fine. But you're not going to get that ultimate efficiency. And some people may argue, even if you dial in a system to that and you spend all this money on these high-end circulators and whatnot, I mean, what are you really saving? And, you know, it just depends. I mean, sometimes, yeah, you might be saving pennies. Sometimes you might be saving a ton of money. It just really all depends on the system. So I always say the variable speed circulators are the, you know, almost a no-brainer on every system, but there's situations where you might not want to. If you got a rental home and, you know, you're not trying to pinch every little dollar out of someone paying the bill anyway. I mean, I do a lot of systems where they're like, look, it's just an apartment. I just need some heat in there. It's still a very efficient system, but maybe they don't want to shell out the extra $300, $400, $500 on extra parts to get that like ultimate level of efficiency. But when you're doing it in your own home, you know, it's still money spent. But you know, I use these in my setup in my house, and I mean, I absolutely love them. But yeah, there's pros and cons to everything. So let's see. Get back to pressing. What was I doing? Measuring. I didn't like how this thing was misaligned, so I'm just adjusting some things. 29.5. Still seems off. So what I've done is laid out, as you can see, all the piping is completely done, and I don't press anything until I have everything situated, because sometimes the plan changes during mid-design, or there's just something I don't like, and or what happens is if you start pressing things and then all of a sudden you need to later press something and it's in a weird spot and you can't get to it, you're kind of screwed. So I usually wait till the very end, and even while I'm pressing it now, I have to kind of keep in mind, you know, the way I'm pressing things together. So you'll see me usually do all of the bottom half, the stuff closer to the board, because if I need to unscrew something and pull something off the top to be able to press a fitting on the bottom, I could do that. But once you start pressing everything, I mean, there's always a way, because I have unions and all sorts of stuff I could, you know, disconnect, but it's just less work if you sort of plan ahead. So you'll see I have everything held in place by the split ring clamps and nothing pressed, and it holds together really well. But everything is marked. What I do is I put there's a little mark so that you know you have the pipe inside the correct depth before you press anything. Because if you go to press something and the pipe's not in all the way, again, you're locked in at that point. You kind of have to start cutting things out and, you know, not ideal. Let's see. Yeah, I think, yeah, you did them by hand, which is, if you use the manual tool, I mean, you can certainly do that, but, yeah, I mean, if you want, if you're just doing a one-off job, go ahead and use the manual one. But if you're doing this all the time, you certainly don't want to do this. These tools are not cheap, but, you know, if you're doing it every day, it pays for itself, of course. To switch back over. Hey, Tom. Tom's on the live. Well, as you can see, I'm out here building more boilers. So do I ever solder? No, I don't. Well, not never, but with the builds, it's very rare. I mean, you'll see I provide a lot of fittings for people to sweat their connections to, but I'm always doing mine in press. I mean, if I don't have to get out a torch, then I won't. I certainly can, but it's kind of like if you're doing existing homes or repairs and stuff, and it's all sweated in. I mean, you could still use press, but there are certain times you wanna solder stuff. But all my builds are done with Propress. You can see too that like the tool, once you press that button and the jaws start to grip, it's locked in and it'll just keep pressing until it completes its press. So you don't even have to hold on to it. So sometimes you'll see it just floating there and I let go of it. It's almost just by habit. One thing I guess I could point out too is when it squeezes those fittings, let me just grab one quick. So here's one of the fittings. And when it squeezes it, sometimes it'll actually pinch a little bit of copper right there. And if I move the phone and went down in there, you could see it'll leave like this really sharp, jagged piece. And you got to be careful because literally, like that's from one. If you zip by that with your hand, I mean, it'll slice it right open. So I usually will go, I mean, the way to kind of avoid that is just when you go to take the tool off, you could sort of rotate it, but it really doesn't work that well. And you could sort of bend it off. And it's really soft copper, but it's just such a sharp point. So I actually go around with this hammer after, and I just give those things a little tap to bend them over because, you know, if you're reaching behind a pipe, you don't even see it behind there, and it'll just slice it right open. Yeah, Evan, so everyone says I need a table. I have tried it on a table. I've tried mounting the plywood directly to the wall, but then gravity's just fighting against you when you're trying to hang everything. The table for me, I ended up climbing on top of it halfway through some of the builds, and I'm like, what am I doing? So, yeah, you can see I got my knee pad down there. So far, I'm good. I'm sure after a bunch of years, I'm going to regret doing this, but I will say, like, I have seen people build it on a table. There's other people on social media that do similar things, and I've seen them build them all different ways. But this works for me. But I've had so many people say, you need a table, you need a table. Believe me, I've tried it. It just doesn't work for me. I like getting over the top of it, especially when it comes down to the wiring. Like I'm all over this thing, and it's just kind of the way I'm used to working. But my thought is, hopefully, I'm not doing this still when I'm hurting that bad a bunch of years from now. But, all right, let's see. So what I wanted to do was lock that whole inner ring to get this all, I mean, this is completely solid now. You could literally hold the weight of this board on one of those pipes. Not recommended, and you're really not supposed to, but it will take that weight. These things are super strong once they're pressed. So now I'm gonna go around and just lock in all the rest of the components separately, and just take my time. I mean, I just try and do it methodically, and because once it's pressed, it's pressed. I mean, you know, you could always fix something, but it's a real pain. So what I usually do too is use a level on these circulators, but you also have to make sure that the floor you're working on is even level, which in this case it is. And I just like to get those positioned. And they're gonna move on you anyway when you try to press it, but first let me get this locked in. So with these zone valves, you can't really press them with this part on. So you really got to make sure you're lined up. And then you can just push this clip in right here to remove them. But when you go to press it, you just got to be careful not to rotate it, or this thing will get, you know, cocked to the side when you go to put it back on. So usually we'll make a mark. Perfect. Battery's dead. Yeah, I don't add pressure and temp gauges. Typically because if you have a variable speed circuit like that, it's going to have supply and return temps on it. The boiler has its own digitally. You could always use just a infrared gun or something. So I mean, yeah, anytime I could avoid leak points, I mean, if you got something that's like a strap on, something that straps over the pipe, then that's fine. But if you really don't need, there's not many scenarios where you really need additional pressure and temperature gauges. Because, for example, a pressure gauge, the boiler is going to be seeing the same pressure and it's going to give you a digital readout as the entire system. It's all connected. There's not going to be a point where well, let me correct myself. There will be differential in pressure for before and after a pump. So yeah, you could, but if you had something like that, like to me, you would have a blockage or something, but there's very few scenarios where if you know what you're doing, and you know what's happening with the system and what you're experiencing, like those gauges don't really come into handy besides creating leak points for the amount of times you would use it, and the gauge or the fitting is going to sit there for 15, 20 years. It's just going to cause problems in the long run. This battery might be dead too. It looks like. Yep, I should have charged my batteries. It's okay, we're going to wait it out. We're just doing that one. I'll charge these up. I have multiple batteries and they're all dead because I'm really bad at making sure everything stays charged. That's okay. I'm going to wrap it up anyway for tonight. Made some good progress, and I will be back at it probably tomorrow. So I guess maybe we'll tune in again tomorrow, and I guess I'll see you guys soon.